whenever there's an episodic series, you can bet two men will talk to you. AJ Talon and Owen Finch give their thoughts on Owen and AJ Talks.
Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to Owen and AJ Talks. I'm Owen Finch and I'm here with...
AJ Talon, and today it's the start of another series reviews. So it's Rick and Morty Season 1, Episode 1.
Yeah, we've been wanting to do this for a while. We talked about this off camera, but I'm happy this year we've gotten to all most of the videos anyways that we've wanted to do and just haven't done yet, but we've had them on our lists, and I feel like this year...
Yeah, we might not have gotten as far as we wanted, but at least we've started it. Or at least hit our mini goals. This one's cool because for Dragon Ball, that was a show I'm really familiar with, and Owen has just seen bits and pieces. This is an interesting one because you've seen pretty much the whole show, and I've just seen a couple episodes throughout. Well, more than a couple. I've seen a couple episodes of every season, but I've never seen a full season.
Yeah, and I've watched the full season. I watched it all in order pretty much, so that's kind of cool in a little bit.
Yeah. I've seen it pretty out of order, so I usually I don't know what episodes are what, Obviously, I knew this was the first episode, so it's kind of cool to come back to it because I haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. We mentioned a thing we like to do in shows. We've kind of noticed this. We just talked about this off camera. We kind of like to say what our first experience was with the show before we start the video and do any of the intro stuff. I guess I'll start with mine since this is mainly my thing. My first experience of this, I had always heard about Rick and Morty because it was pretty popular when I was in college. Mainly 2017, because I started hearing about it because it went MIA in between I think seasons 2 and 3, and it took a while for it to go in production, and then my friend who does GM with us, John, watched it. He mentioned it, it was the first time it came back, and he watched a YouTube channel that covered wrestling, and that guy talked about it, mentioned that it went out of action for a while, and then my first actual episode I saw, because then I didn't watch it for a while, was, I don't remember the episode name. I think it's season 5 because it's it's the same season. Where we find out about the Rick's backstory and everything like that, at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think that's 5.
I saw the season premiere, which I didn't even know was the season premiere, but it's the episode where we meet Mr. Nimbus for the first time. That's the first episode I've seen of Rick and Morty, which I didn't even know was the season premiere. Kind of because you wouldn't think it's the season premiere because it's just a regular Rick and Morty episode. It doesn't really do anything season premiere-ish type of thing. Yeah. I will say that I've always kind of noticed that about Rick and Morty. The season premieres are very weird. You wouldn't know you wouldn't think that the season premieres because the season finale will always end on a cliffhanger. Then they don't really follow up on it sometimes, until later on. But then and I watched that at one of my friend's house because he went to bed and it was just on. And then I saw that Rick and Morty was on Hulu, and because I use my sister's Hulu account, I started just watching Rick and Morty. I started watching it in 2022. I didn't realize how long Rick and Morty had been around. When we say the episode dates and I have you yes, you're going to be kind of shocked how long Rick and Morty's been around a lot longer than you think, so maybe that's a hint. And then I think it was kind of cool because I kind of watched Rick and Morty at a good time because I watched it kind of with Yellow Jackets. I watched it right before the next season came out, so I got to kind of watch the next season as it was going on type of thing, which was kind of cool because season 5 actually ended on a cliffhanger, and then season 6 followed up on it because all of them go back to their dimensions. So I got to kind of watch those episodes back to back pretty much. I didn't have to wait. Yeah. So that was kind of my first experience with Rick and Morty type of thing. Kind of sucks because I got into it. I typically do that with shows. I'll get into them really late, and I think it's because this is gonna sound weird, but I think because when a show's popular, I don't really like to get into it just because then it like forces you to have a conversation with people. So I kind of like to like be in my own little bubble sometimes when I like
Yeah,
to
you
watch
kind of
this.
like the cult stuff. Yeah. It is funny you pointed out that like your friend was watching it when you were over his place because I had a very similar thing. I believe I was either like 8th grade, like last year of middle school, or like freshman year of high school.
Okay.
My buddy Aaron invited me to hang out like that night over at his place, and he just had Rick and Morty on. And first time I had seen it or even heard of it, it was the episode where they kept making decisions and they kept like splitting the universes.
Yeah, I think that's actually the season 2 premiere actually. So.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that was the first one I'd seen, and he told me like, oh, yeah, Rick and Morty, it's a pretty good show. I was like, okay, cool. I didn't watch it too much, and then I believe it was the season 3 premiere. It got like really big because I don't know if you remember the Szechuan sauce that became like a big meme.
Yeah.
And Pickle Rick, like season 3, basically. That became a big thing, and I remember I got a little annoyed with it because this girl I had a crush on, I hung out with. Her other friend was a big Rick and Morty fan, and he was super fucking annoying. One day he came to school in like a really shitty Rick costume. He didn't even look like Rick. He wore like goggles and like a brown coat, and he just kept doing a really shitty Rick impression. I remember he really annoyed me. And yeah, so that was kind of just like my intro to Rick and Morty. And then, like I said, I kind of just like, because you said, they took like big breaks in between seasons. So I kind of just like passively watched it. Whenever a new season came out, I would check out a couple episodes.
I think the reason too,
I think I was pretty into it in season 3 because I really liked the the Rick the Citadel episode. That was like that's my favorite episode of the show.
Right.
And then like the following season, they didn't follow. Oh, I was expecting them. That was like going to be the finale, is like them going to the Citadel. It wasn't. It was like the episode where he fought the president. And then next season, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm really looking forward to the Citadel. They didn't touch on it at all the next season, and it wasn't until like the season after that they actually did. Like you said, season 5.
Yeah.
Where they got back to it. And I remember that really annoyed me, so I kind of just like stopped watching the show.
Yeah. I think the reason I've probably seen more of the show as you have is I got into the show probably. You probably got into it the most popular time, but I got into it at a better time in the sense that all the episodes were available on stream and when I could get in.
And that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. A big reason I like didn't follow it that much is because like the gaps between seasons were pretty big.
Yeah, so I got to kind of.
It's gotten better. Like I think the gap between like 5 and 6 and 6 and 7 wasn't that bad, but like the gaps between 2 and 3 and 3 and 4 and it were like terrible.
This gap's pretty bad now too. I think they just finished season 7. We haven't even seen anything on season 8 yet, and the only real thing Rick and Morty we got this year was the anime, and I mean I know you've only heard about it through me, but that hasn't been received the greatest. So like
Yeah. You're gonna talk about the creators of the show. I will say though, back when like I said, around season 3 time when I was like it was really popular. Dan Harmon appeared on an episode of The Game Grumps, so I kind of got to know a bit more about him, which is interesting. And I was kind of familiar with Justin Roiland because he, at one point, it reminded me, he was in a few other shows I watched when I was younger, specifically Adventure Time, he was a lemon grab, and in Gravity Falls, he was, I can't remember his name, the time travel dude. And his voices in that are literally Morty.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like it's pretty much 1-to-1 with Morty.
Okay. I don't know what's going on. I can't find my,
So, like, when I saw him playing Morty, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's definitely him. But I didn't learn till later that he was Rick as well. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that voice is pretty different.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've never had this happen before. I can't find, like, the notes that... I made, like, notes on, like, the background.
Really? I haven't pulled up.
No, but I made, like, another notes just for, like, me so I could, like, reference them, and I can't, like, find them. So I don't know why that's the case. Did they not... that's kind of annoying. Let me see if they just didn't save real quick, because that's kind of a little annoying.
Okay, I guess I'll keep talking while you do that. So, yeah, Rick and Morty. Justin Roiland, of course, isn't in the newer season. He ended up leaving as a writer, and Rick and Morty got new voices. And it is kind of, and obviously, so they sound different in the new season. However, we kind of talked about how even in this episode 1, they sound different from where they are in 3 and 4, which is pretty common. We've talked about that in our other review shows. Like Grandpa Max sounded pretty different at the beginning of Ben 10. He had a bit more of like a southern accent. Red versus Blue, like a lot of them sound pretty different in season 1 compared to where they are in the future seasons. Avatar was pretty consistent, and I think Danny Phantom was also pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Although I think I pointed out Vlad sounded a little different in Bitter Reunions and where he is later.
Yeah. Well, we mentioned too, like in Danny, I think you could definitely. I think we talked about that in the video. We mentioned, Vlad's voice, like when he was human, sounded different than it was a ghost, but then they eventually, worked the middle ground type of thing. So
yeah.
All right, so, I found my notes though. They were on a different account. That's what happened. Because this laptop's not connected to my other Google accounts. So, there we go. Crisis averted. That would have been bad. Like, I was like, I remember writing these notes. I'm like, and they save. I don't know what happened to them, but yeah. So this is kind of like the behind the scenes notes I kind of made for myself, so that way I can kind of go through it. I'll admit some of this I'm just gonna read off the wiki, and some of this I just made up my own notes, so it doesn't sound like I'm reading completely off a script. But yeah, so like you said, Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon are the creators of this show. And, they met at the Channel 101, which is like a film festival that happens every year. I think they met in 2004-ish. And, obviously nothing came of it instantly because Rick and Morty, when we get to the actual air date, took a little bit to get going. But every year, Roland would submit a project, and it would basically confuse everybody. I think, if you've seen Rick and Morty and you've seen some of his other works, I think, sometimes he likes to throw stuff at the wall to kind of see what sticks, and I think a lot of people just kind of didn't really understand what was being produced. However, though, Hartman ended up liking his work. He liked the short films that he did every year. And before, Rick and Morty became a thing, Roland did other works. In 2006, he was fired from working on a television series. He didn't say what the television series was, but he said he wasn't really that mad about getting fired from it because it was creatively stifling and funneled his creative energies into creating a webisode for Channel 101. Other works that Roland did is he worked on several shows such as The Real Animated Adventures of Doc and Morty, which is basically a parody of, Back to the Future.
Yeah, kind of.
I kind of, that could be something interesting we review just because of the fact that it inspired Rick and Morty. So, I always...
I feel like we would have to review Back to the Future first.
Yeah, but I'm saying that'd be something cool to review because, I always like to kind of watch, a show. I want to review X-Files, because Vince Gilligan worked on that, right before Breaking Bad and type of thing.
Yeah.
So...
Well, it's funny because we just did Avatar, and I talked about how Dave Filoni directed one of the episodes that we just did, and it's kind of funny because we're going to do Star Wars soon, and he was one of the main writers for Star Wars: The Clone War.
And he also wrote for a show called Community. I don't know what that is, but he wrote for that. And then he did some voice acting, like you said. He was on Adventure Time, and I don't know if you remember this show. He was on the show Fish Hooks on Disney Channel. He did a voice acting for that. I don't know what character he voice acted for because it's been a while since I've seen it. But
yeah, I do remember Fish Hooks. I didn't like it that much.
I don't think he did either because he doesn't voice act. He didn't voice act for it anymore. So, and then in 2012, he was Dan Harmon was briefly fired from Community. I think it turned into a permanent firing because Rick and Morty kind of I think Rick and Morty kind of happens from that type of thing because when you guess I'm giving you hints on the air date because we're not too far away from Rick and Morty after 2012. So.
Well, I kind of knew that anyway, because like I said, I was in middle school, high school when season 2 came out. So
yeah, and then you know, after this, Harmon and Roland kind of started about projects they wanted to do, and you know, he brought up the idea of doing Rick and Morty again, which was inspired by the real animated adventures of Doc and Morty. Because you know, they kind of talked about doing a show like this, and he came up with the name Rick and Morty. And they kept trying to pitch this show. You know, Roland tried to pitch like several shows to Fox, which would keep getting rejected. So he was kind of starting to get burnt out. And then when he kind of started to pitch Rick and Morty to Adult Swim, not Comedy Central, Adult Swim. Adult Swim kind of kept giving their 2 cents in because they originally wanted Rick and Morty to be just like an 11-minute like episodes, kind of like SpongeBob, Fairly Odd Parents, like Jimmy Neutron was in like season 1.
I mean, that's pretty common. You know, like, you know, regular show was originally going to be on Adult Swim. That's like typically like an 11-minute episodes.
Yeah, but Adult Swim didn't want to go that well. They wanted, you know, them to be a half hour, which they got obviously what they wanted because Rick and Morty's a half hour. And also they wanted to go with the family dynamic. That's why they made, like, you know, Rick, Morty's grandfather, and then that's why they made, you know, the family dynamic type of thing. It doesn't say why, but I think, you know, I assuming Roland probably just relented again because he was sick of probably his shows getting turned down, and it seemed like, you know, Adult Swim was like at least willing to work with them. So I think he was kind of willing to.
Well, obviously not anymore.
Oh yeah, because they're not even on it's not on Adult Swim anymore.
Well, no, I was saying is he got fired.
Right, I'm saying back then.
Well, obviously, they're not willing to work with him anymore.
Yeah. And kind of going through how they wrote the show behind the scenes. This I'm just gonna read right off the wiki, just because it's easier. Let's see. Go to paragraph 3. Yeah, the first draft was completed in 6 hours on the Paramount Pictures lot in Dan Herman's unfurnished office. I won't go into I won't say too much into detail, but some of the time, they wouldn't even they would be sitting on the floor just cross-legged writing episodes of Rick and Morty. It's kind of interesting because they mention here, I think it's Roland. Let me make sure I got that right. Yeah, I think it's Roland. He's like a huge procrastinator. So like sometimes Herman had to kind of like push him to like you know, get the stuff done, which you know, kind of isn't. I could make the joke there, like I wonder what he was doing while he was procrastinating, but I don't know if that's right. So
yeah,
but you know, and yeah, they went with for the first season. Adult Swim placed a tamer than usual TV-14 rated on the program, which was initially met with reluctance from the show staff. The network's reason behind the rating was that it would begin broadcasting in prime time, competing with major programs. Later on, though, episodes started to receive the TVMA rating, which is like in season 2 and things like that. There's actually some shorts about Rick and Morty because it says Herman wrote 4 short premises in which Morty took a assertive role and sent it to Mike Lazo. So that's interesting, you know, considering the fact that you know, later on Morty kind of does start to stand up to Rick and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. No, it's pretty much it. Everything. It's kind of all the behind the scenes, mainly to like the pilot. I do want to read when we talk about the theme song. There's one more behind the scenes thing, but I'll kind of get to that when we actually cover the theme song, which is going to be in a few minutes. So
right. So cold open. It is kind of funny because, you know, I feel like a lot of shows would start off with
we forgot the air date.
Oh yeah, March 20th, 2013.
Let's see. Well, this was obvious, and this was directed by Joe Roland too. By the way, I didn't mention that. And we kind of mentioned who wrote the episode.
You mean Justin?
Yeah, Justin Roland. Sorry. What did I say?
You said Joe.
Oh, no, I said Joe. That's weird, but whatever. Not even the same. Not even close. This episode came out on December 2nd, 2013. So it's not.
Oh, okay. So more winter time. Okay. So yeah, I've been 13 for 2 months. It's kind of crazy that the show's been out for more than 10 years now.
I know, that's why when I saw like the episode like air dates, because you can see them on Hulu and stuff, I was like, wow, that's fucking the Rick and Morty.
Well, like
been
I
around
said,
that long.
the gaps between seasons are like huge, for some of them. So it's like they aired 7 seasons, but it's been out for like nearly 11 or 12 years.
I want to make sure we mention this too. I think the reason this show came out at a good time for you though is because the reason like Walking Dead was popular when I was in school was because you're getting to that age where you like that stuff type of thing. And when I wasn't going through high school and all that type of stuff, that's kind of like the age gap where you start to get into that stuff. You kind of started. Typically, people like 13.
When you say that stuff, do you mean like darker stuff?
Yeah, dark, like more adult stuff type of thing.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, going into when you become 13, that's kind of like when you typically start watching like the Family Guys and like the.
Well, yeah, that's what I was wondering because I was like, I feel like Walking Dead and Rick and Morty are very different. So I feel like you have to specify when you say like like that stuff, because they are very different. But I agree they're like.
And they also they're reaching like a target demo audience, and they both reach the same target demo audience, at least when it comes to ages and everything like that. So
that's an interesting thing because I feel like neither. I mean, I don't know much about Walking Dead, but I feel like both shows aren't really like adult aimed. I feel like they're more like late teens to young adults,
Yeah, definitely.
Because I feel like Rick and Morty, like it appeals more to like a teenager rather than like a 30-year-old,
Yeah, like teenage.
Even though it's like an adult cartoon.
More so Rick and Morty like teenage males type of thing. So.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely knew some girls who liked it, so like it's not completely like male, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, so the cold open, now we've got the air date out of the way, is, like I said, I was saying, it's interesting because, it's not like, picking up, like Rick and Morty have kind of known each other for a while. Not too long as, and when Beth and Jerry are arguing later on, they kind of go into how, like, Rick has, like, he's moved in fairly recently, like, he's likely only been there for a few months.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny, because obviously, like, Ben 10 started, he found the Omnitrix Avatar and got out of the iceberg. Danny Phantom, they said he's had his powers for, like a month.
Yeah, they kind of took the Danny Phantom approach, where, like, the plot had already kind of happened, like, off-screen type of thing.
Although, even then, like, Danny, he had, like, only just fought a ghost in, like, the cold open. And, like, he'd only had powers for a month. This is picking up a fair bit later.
Yeah.
Which I kind of like, in a way. Like, as we're like with Star Wars, a big thing with that was he kind of George Lucas like was big inspired by like adventure serials where you're kind of just like starting like in the middle of a story, like you're not picking up at like the very beginning, which I kind of like. It would have been nice if we got like an episode about how Rick met Morty, but I'm glad for like the pilot we're kind of picking up like okay they already like have a dynamic.
I mean,
especially because it ends up being a reveal later that like Rick and Morty aren't like exactly grandfather grandson.
Right. I think this is kind of cool. I kind of like that the show, has already been kind of going on like in the background because we're kind of blind to it. The characters are kind of setting the roles already. And
exactly.
I don't think you could do an episode of like a pilot because again, it's the first season. I think you kind of have to have, you're kind of selling the audience to want to keep watching, and I feel like this, you kind of have to have the dynamic already kind of set in stone in the first episode.
Yeah, especially for like a comedy like this, like having everyone like established helps.
Yeah.
Which, isn't too uncommon. Code Lyoko did a similar thing where they started off with everyone's already known each other for a while, and then like the last season, we got like a 2-parter of like how everyone met.
Yeah. But I kind of
so like this isn't like the first show to do that, but I do like that we're kind of like starting off. Rick and Morty already have a dynamic, and the cold open does a good job establishing that dynamic. Rick drunkenly stumbles into Morty's room while he's sleeping and drags him quite literally out of bed, like throws him into his like little ship that he drives around on in the later in the show, and he's talking about how he's gonna fucking blow up the planet. And he's like, "Oh, don't worry, Morty. That girl you have a crush on, we'll save her, and then you guys can be like an Adam and Eve." And Morty's trying to like be like, "Oh, okay, Rick, there's a few things wrong with that. He's like, don't worry, Morty, I won't hit on her. I won't steal your girl. I like how, like, obviously Rick is drunk out of his fucking mind, so, like, he's, like, thinking, like, Morty's worried that Rick is gonna steal his, like, girlfriend, and not that he's gonna blow up humanity.
Obviously that line doesn't, obviously land in 24, obviously.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it's, like, Morty's, like, 14, and Rick's, like, a, fucking old man.
But,
so it is kind of how Rick thinks Morty's worried about him sleeping with a girl his age.
Yeah. But yeah, this was kind of cool. I liked kind of the dynamic here. One thing too, I kind of didn't notice this the first time I watched this. Unless Rick was just drunk out of his mind type of thing, it did seem like that he just finished like working on the ship, because like Rick like asked Morty like, "What do you think of my new ride?" Unless he was just so drunk out of his mind, he was just rambling. But it did seem like this was like the first time he rode the ship. But I'm not sure.
I remember.
Yeah,
I feel like I thought he had that ship for a while, but I mean I could be wrong.
But again, I do remember Rick asked him about that. I don't know if it actually was the first time, or again if Rick was just so drunk that he was just rambling type of thing.
Yeah, because obviously Morty's like trying to like get him to not blow up a bomb and wipe out humanity, and and then Rick's like, oh, you know what, you're right. Don't worry, we won't save your girlfriend. And she's probably like well, not even girlfriend, because Morty even points out the girl probably like doesn't even know he exists.
Yeah.
And then Rick's like, don't worry, she's probably a bitch anyway. So Morty actually has to like physically like grab Rick and try to get him to land. And then he's like, okay, fine, I'll land, Jesus. Like he's like upset that Morty's like trying to stop him from fucking blowing up everyone on the planet. He's got to wait a couple episodes for Rick to doom humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And they land, and when Rick like stumbles out of the car, you see just like a pile of empty beer cans like come out of the car. So clearly he's been fucking drinking like an insane amount. And he's like, "Oh, hey, Morty, good job. This was a test for you to stand up for yourself." And Morty's like, "Really?" And Rick's like, "Oh yeah, I don't know, maybe." And it just passes out. So clearly, like, he's full of shit. And then in the background, it's like, "Oh, the bomb's about to go off," and then they cut to the intro. So we never find out if the bomb went off or not.
I like to think now, like, I kind of hope, like, it'd be kind of funny if, like, at the very end of, like, the show, we find out, like, the bomb actually did go off and everything we've been seeing was, like, a prequel or something like that. Like,
yeah, this was, like, the end of the show, yeah. Yeah, so I like this. Like we said, establishes our dynamic pretty well. Rick is a genius, but he's a psycho drunk. And Morty is a pretty nervous, like, nerdy kid, and he kind of has to be the voice of reason when Rick is being a nut job.
Yeah, this little cold open, I think, did a really good job establishing the dynamics between Rick and Morty, and kind of showing like the dynamics. And I will say this: the big mistake the anime did in their pilot was this episode. Is like about Rick and Morty kind of going on an adventure and stuff like that. The first episode, Rick and Morty aren't like on screen together like at all, like in the first episode, which is kind of that's like a mistake. Like, why would you not have them? You could have episodes like without Rick and Morty, but the reason why Rick and Morty works is because of their adventures. So why would you not have them on screen at least together, like at least once, type of thing? It was really odd. But yeah, I like this. And I liked, the animation style, and I thought the voice acting was pretty good here. And yeah, it was just good stuff, And, I feel like, too, they tell you right away, too, that Rick's a scientist, without, the characters having to, like, say it themselves type of thing.
Yeah, obviously, because he invented, like, a personal flying ship, and, he's had a bomb that could wipe out humanity, yeah.
So, like, I liked that, this is a good way to kind of do that, and then, yeah. And this cold open too, like, did a good job of setting up like the plot for like the rest of the episode too. Which kind of weird because that ends up
Rick is insane and he ends up roping Morty into his adventures. Yeah, pretty much.
And really the whole show too, I guess. So.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you talk about the intro.
Yeah, the intro is really good. I like the intro. It kind of just shows like all of the adventures that Rick and Morty go on, some of these some of these adventures, a big thing that we see in the cold open is Morty will always be the worst off for it. So you see, like, the very first thing in the intro is Rick and Morty like running away from like aliens, and we see like Rick uses portal gun to escape, but Morty pretty much gets left for like dead type of thing. We always see this in like the intro, but you never actually see this in an episode. Obviously you see Jerry's in the intro, and he's like, killing like alien things. We'll come back to that in episode 6. And then also shows like the wacky adventures they get into. Like one of them, like Jerry's pregnant, like about to like give birth.
I kind of like that we don't actually like see these like in episodes. Like, this is just kind of probably like what they're doing in between episodes.
Yeah, one we always see at the end.
And Anime Konosuba kind of does a similar thing where the intro will be like an adventure they go on, and it's just I like it when intros do that, where they kind of just like show little mini adventures the characters probably get up to.
Drake and Josh like does that in their intros. There'll be scenes that never made the show, but like they film, obviously they film them like behind the scenes type of thing. But like you like to think that's what
but like implying like, okay, this is probably what they're doing. Like they're like still doing little misadventures in between episodes.
Yeah, but one we always see, by the way, and I kind of hope it gets an episode and they make a joke out of it, is we see like Rick, Morty, and like Summer, like running, like flying away in Rick's spaceship as with like some like alien baby or something they've like kidnapped. And,
like a Cthulhu monster kind of thing. Yeah,
and like a bigger monster's like chasing them. And we always see this at like the end of like the cold open. The Rick and Morty like getting chased by aliens and like the Summer one. I do like the Summer one a lot, because obviously this is with hindsight. She becomes like a pretty big part of their adventures like later on, so it's kind of cool that like they kept that. So
yeah, in this episode she's kind of just like the older sister. She's not anything major, which is fine. The show's Rick and Morty. I think focusing on Rick and Morty for the first episode is more than fine.
Yeah, but I like the cold open. It kind of tells you what the show's about. That it seems like Rick kind of pulls everybody else into like his chaos and like scientific like adventures, more specifically Morty type of thing. So I like this. So
after the intro, we cut to the next morning.
Before the intro, I said I would say something off screenish and like behind the scenes. So this intro, hold on, I gotta find it because it's right on the wiki. I'm just gonna read it. The theme song for Rick and Morty is done by Ryan Oda, and it was originally supposed to be used in a rejected cartoon pilot that Roland was gonna do. And apparently, this when we do the next episode, they reference it in the next episode. So it'd be kind of interesting to see how they reference it, type of thing.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. I don't think I've ever seen episode 2. If I have, I don't know what it is.
I want to forget the reference too, if they'll tell us like explicitly, or if we have to like know the reference because it said it was canceled. So
yeah, I do kind of like the cold open has an effect on the rest of the show because. Typically like a cold open, like only like the ending of it will have an effect. Like remember in Ben 10 when Ben stops, the most dangerous villains, Butch and Rusty.
Yeah. It's
kind of just set up that they're going to go visit Max's sister, or like I guess Danny Phantom. The cold opens sometimes matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just saying typically in shows like a cold open will kind of just be like its own thing, separate from the rest of the show. And like maybe the very end of it will like set up the rest of the show. I mean the rest of the episode. But here the cold open actually did end up having effect because Morty's super tired the next day at breakfast with his family. He's like falling asleep like into his food. And it is kind of funny how like like you said, everyone's like already known each other for a while because they're a family in this. So you don't really get oh, this is Jerry, this is Summer, this is Beth. You kind of just like have to pick up on it as you go.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like I feel like it's annoying when some shows like have to like basically look at the camera and point and be like, okay, this is who that is. This is who that is. So it, like this feels like more natural.
Yeah, definitely.
And you kind of get a good idea of their dynamic. Because Morty is so tired and like, we found out like he's not really like focusing on school that much. Jerry's upset with Rick that he's constantly taking Morty out on these adventures, and like he can't focus on the other important stuff in his life. Summer is just kind of making like snappy comments off to the side. So we kind of get, she's kind of like the snarky, like, teenage girl. Jerry's like the kind of like quote unquote normal dad, compared to Rick's like, outlandish adventures. And Beth seems to kind of take more, she seems kind of neutral in this compared to, she's not really taking a side against Jerry, but she's ends up taking more so Rick's side, I guess. Like she's not against Jerry, but she's more so in favor of Rick.
And I do like that they kind of expand upon that, like later on, type of thing, like why.
Yeah, you kind of get a feel for that here when Rick kind of just says like, Beth, your mom, like good job on those eggs. Your mom would be so proud if you were here. And Beth is like tears in her eyes. So you kind of get the feeling of like, okay, Rick is like a piece of shit. He's like manipulating Beth, and Beth has like daddy issues.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's a lot of what she's saying isn't because she like actually like believes Rick and Morty are better off together, but more so because she just wants her dad's approval.
Yeah, and I like all the dynamics here. I like, instantly Rick and Jerry, you get the sense don't like each other. And that's that they kept that for the most part throughout the show, and sometimes I think it's a little bit too malicious that they don't like each other, but I like here that there's kind of a reasons why they don't like each other, because Jerry kind of hates the fact of like how he thinks Rick's a bad influence on his son Morty, and Morty, his political views and like just views on the world, I think clash with like Jerry's type of thing. So like I kind of like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say political. I just like world views in general.
Yeah, definitely. Because someone makes mention like we find out kind of Rick's an atheist here, because someone makes mention. She makes like
she's like I'm praying to God that this happens, just like as an offhand comment. And Rick is like, there's no God, Summer. I'm just gonna rip that bandit off for you right now.
And then there's like another like thing where like Jerry's worried about his school, and Rick does like a social commentary about like why he doesn't like school. Like it's just a bunch of like
well, I do like you said, it's social commentary, but like he's saying it in such like a ridiculous way of like you have to fucking ask to take a shit, and then they have to give you a piece of paper just so you can use the bathroom, and they give you like a fucking piece of paper and a milk carton or something for lunch. So like he's saying, like he's giving commentary, but he's saying it in like a really ridiculous way.
And I think what I like about this too is like, because we're
like it's not beating you over the head with it.
Not just that, but like it fits his character. Because sometimes in Family Guy, like Peter and Lois will give like social commentaries about why the things are bad, but like it's why they want to keep doing the things that like they're doing type of thing. But then they'll say like why they shouldn't be doing it type of thing. So like it doesn't really fit the story. So with Rick, you actually believe he believes the things he's saying type of thing. So
yeah, like it fits him. Like he's not just like warping his character around like an idea the writers have.
Well, like the idea of the voice, like later on, like Brian in Family Guy,
just becomes like a mouthpiece for Seth MacFarlane. Yeah,
because he's based off Seth MacFarlane. So yeah.
And later in the show, we kind of see like Rick is a very like flawed person, where this ends up kind of being like his character, where he tries to say everything's dumb and stupid and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So this is good.
Which like I like the episodes where Rick is like presented as like flawed and people call him out on his bullshit. Like not to say that Rick is always wrong, but like he isn't always right either.
Yeah,
because I feel like the worst episodes of Rick and Morty is like when it's like, oh yeah, Rick's 100% right, nothing matters, everything sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Or like Rick's a terrible person and he doesn't really get his comeuppance.
Yeah,
I think this episode does a good job of like balancing that.
Yeah, definitely. So then at school, we see that Morty is really tired, and we see the math teacher. I like it too because like, in a weird way, it's like everything like Rick said in his social commentary. So I do kind of like that. Like the teacher's having him like, do like say what like their times tables and everything like that. But Rick's not.
It is kind of funny because at the end of the episode, Jerry's like, "Okay, Morty, you're not as good as the other kids." Because Morty gets handed like an easy as shit like test. Like Morty's like 14. This is like a 5th grade test.
Yeah.
And Morty just immediately like starts daydreaming throughout the whole class.
But you know, Rick, obviously Morty's tired because he was up all night from the cold open, and he's also daydreaming about his crush. We actually meet his crush in this episode, Jessica, I'll be honest, whose name I forgot like in this review, and then remembered like randomly until you like a few seconds later, which is just weird. So,
I do kind of like she ends up being a recurrent character.
Yeah.
Which I feel like it's pretty common. Trixie and Philly parents, Betty and Danny Phantom, and Jim Neutron, Paulina, and Danny Phantom. Which it is kind of weird how common it is that like the crush character ends up like becoming a recurrent thing.
Yeah, and
especially because in 9 times out of 10 they don't end up getting with the crush character.
Yeah, because then they'll end up like dating like their friend or whatever type of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's kind of funny because Rick and Morty like doesn't really do that. They don't really introduce like a friend character for Morty to get with.
Right.
Like, he's kind of always like, having a crush on Jessica.
Yeah. So Morty, is daydreaming about Jessica. At one point, he says her name, and like Jessica like looks back. So like you think it's like Morty just saying it in his head, but he's actually like saying it out loud. And
also because the math teacher's like asking everyone to like answer the math questions, and everyone's like answering numbers. And Morty's just saying Jessica. And
then the math teacher, I always see him again. He becomes a recurring character. I don't remember his name right now, but at one point, like the math teacher, like after he says like 2/3, just like okay, pop quiz, and then everyone just goes on. He's like, yeah, damn right, but too bad, pop quiz. Like he says like a really funny.
Yeah, he got like super fucking angry all of a sudden. Yeah, I like that.
So yeah, they hand over like the quiz. Morty's daydreaming, like, and I don't think it's because the test is hard, because obviously Rick's been keeping him up all night, so the numbers like are just gibberish to him. And
I think it's a bit of both. I think it's like he was up all night, and he's also just like a dumbass.
Yeah. So he starts daydreaming about his crush Jessica. Kind of cool. I'm watching this after I just watched the most recent Dragon Ball episode, because I mentioned, when Goku was naked, like they didn't draw it completely, but like they didn't cover up like his yin yang and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So you see,
and then here obviously they're like covering up the boobs.
Yeah. So Morty's dreaming he's in like a Numberland type of thing. And Jessica comes up and flashes Morty. I do like this because even though this is in Morty's head, she mentions like I call my boobs my little Mortys, and like Morty is even like questioning this, even though it's his
he's like, okay, that's really weird.
It's his, even though it's his daydream, and he starts caressing Jessica's boobs in his daydream, and what he's actually
and then it cuts to reality, and he's the class is over, and the teacher's like yelling at Morty to like wake up, and presumably Morty didn't even take his test.
Yeah,
and Morty is fondling the teacher's chest, and I do like how he's like pretending to be mad, but then he looks at his watch, and he's like, all right, if this goes on for another 5 minutes, I'm gonna get really mad, like implying that he actually likes what Morty's doing to him.
I would like to he's like, I didn't cause this. This is just happening, type of thing. Like,
yeah. He's like, he's like defending it. Like, all right, I didn't ask for this.
Yeah. So yeah, I liked this.
It is funny because they end up going to this teacher's dream in a future episode when you find out he's a real fucking freak.
Yeah. That's the next episode actually. So.
Is it? Oh, okay, never mind. I guess I do know that episode. Yeah. So it cuts right after class.
Oh, it's
kind of we didn't get like an.
I think it's still me talking.
I'm everything at school.
Oh, might be. I was supposed to.
That's why I was like, "Oh, you're gonna keep talking." Okay, I thought I was doing this.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it cuts to presumably like in between classes. Morty's at his locker. I kind of wish we got like a scene of like when Morty actually woke up and the teacher got pissed at him.
Yeah.
Especially because like the B plot of this is like the teachers are like upset that Morty's like doing so shitty in school.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Morty's at his locker, and all of a sudden, just this like bully guy, clearly dressed super like edgy. He's got like the leather jacket and like dark hair over his face. He like grabs Morty, but Morty gets grabbed by his shirt a lot in this episode. I noticed.
Yeah.
And then yeah, can you talk?
Yeah. So yeah, Morty gets grabbed by his shirt, and the bully's like threatening him, and Morty's kind of like talking back to him, and he pulls out a knife on him, and Morty's even like correcting the bully of how to bully type of thing, and he's just like, you're telling me how to bully type of thing, because Morty's like, I don't think you needed the knife at this point, because Rick, Morty, the bully had already made his point and everything like that, and I don't know what the bully was about to do to Morty, but he was gonna do something like bad, like skin him like a fish or something like that. But before anything can happen, Rick comes up and freezes the bully, and just kind of immediately asks Morty to go out with him on an adventure, and everything like that.
So I guess you ended up talking about the school stuff after all. Dude, I swear, even though I live on my own, my family has like a timer of like, oh shit, AJ's doing a video. Fucking better go.
Should I just
knock on his door?
Should I just finish the school stuff and then you could just talk? We'll talk about the best.
Yeah, I want to just swap whatever I was going to talk about. You talk about whatever you were going to talk about. I'll talk about.
Yeah. So then, so yeah, you have to make sure you remind me of that. I think what happened is I left the notes app to go to the wiki, and So, but anyhow, so yeah, Rick, we find out needs some like fruit seeds or something for like an invention or something he's working on, and he needs Morty's help to get them. And obviously Morty doesn't want to go because he's missed a lot of school. But Rick says like that he really needs Morty for this mission. He's like really important to it and everything like that. So he kind of convinces Morty to like go, and then Morty's just kind of like reluctant. He kind of goes, but he's like, okay, I can just skip social studies, I guess. But like I do kind of like that like Rick, this is showing here that Rick is the one that is pushing him to go on these adventures and everything like that. And Morty's kind of like reluctant, but then eventually agrees to it. I do like this because this does become like, even though Rick and Morty can be episodic, this becomes like a pretty consistent plot where sometimes they'll change it type of thing. Where and they actually like those times where Rick has to ask permission, or they'll do something like where Morty gets to pick the adventure type of thing. So I do like that this is just a one and done type of like plot type of thing. So
yeah.
What do you think of everything at school, though? Because you didn't really get to be here for a lot of it, and I ended up talking about a lot of it.
Yeah. So I liked it decent enough, kind of showing like the consequence of Morty going on these adventures is that he isn't really paying attention to much in school. And, we kind of just see like the stereotype of the bully, picking on Morty. And yeah, that's kind of standard. I was fine with it. Sets up the rest of the episode where Rick ends up picking him up and they end up going on an adventure.
Yeah, definitely. So that was cool. And you find out, I think, there's a reason Rick specifically chooses. Kind of a coincidence the day he picks to go on this adventure, but whatever. So,
yeah. Well, I wouldn't say he picks Morty because it ends up being like he didn't plan on his gun, like like running out of juice.
Yeah.
So kind of coincidences. But anyway, Rick and Morty end up going to this known dimension, and Morty's complaining the whole time that he needs to get back to school. And I do like how Morty is actually like kind of taking what his dad just said to heart, where like, okay, like I should actually go to school, because we find out later he's only been to school for like 7 hours total over the last 2 months.
Yeah, that's not a lot.
That's not even a full day.
Yeah.
So I guess math class is like his first class of the day. And even then, he hasn't been going to that. And then Morty, Rick is trying to basically tell him what he was telling Rick or Jerry earlier, that like school's stupid. And he's like, look, Morty, you're seeing, shit that you'll never learn about in school. He's like, look at all these like crazy monsters around you that like don't make any sense. And they end up getting to this cliff, and Rick explains that, there's trees down there with like these special nuts on them that he needs to get. It is kind of fucked up that he took Morty out of school just to help him like carry these like nut fruits.
Yeah.
You know, like this wasn't anything like major. He just basically brought Morty around to just help him carry shit.
I mean, Rick could have just come.
Because remember, all the stuff that happened at like the airport thing wasn't supposed to happen. They were just supposed to teleport there, grab it, teleport back.
Yeah. I think it's funny too because Rick clearly could have done this himself too. Like he could have, so I think it's funny that
He could have just built. He probably had a robot that could have just fucking helped him. But I think that ends up kind of being a plot point in the show. Is like he's really dependent on like having Morty around as like a sidekick.
Mm-hmm.
It is kind of weird here though, because as we find out later, he never had a Morty, and he's only been here for like a couple months.
Yeah.
So it is kind of weird that he is this dependent on Morty. But oh well, that's more future stuff. But yeah, he gives Morty these little gravity boots so he can climb down the cliff. But this is a pretty funny joke where Morty goes to like climb down the cliff and he just like falls immediately, and Rick has to be like, "Oh hey, you're supposed to turn that on."
Yeah, like Rick didn't turn them on. Like what? I'd be like pissed. Like why would Rick didn't turn them on like before he handed them to them?
Well, I mean, to be fair, Morty is pissed at him.
Yeah,
and I do like that we see they're actually wearing these throughout the rest of the episode.
Yeah, that was good.
Because I remember in the Avatar video, I complained that it's annoying that we didn't actually see Katara's like necklace fall off because that ends up being a plot point.
Yeah.
So it is nice to actually remember, like, okay, they're wearing gravity boots. They're wearing them throughout the rest of the episode.
What I do like about these scenes here too is I like that Rick, like Morty falls and break his legs, and at this point like Morty's like pissed at like Rick at this point because all Rick cares about is like just like the seeds and stuff, and like Morty kind of starts to stand up for himself, so he's not just like completely taking like Rick's crap and all that type of stuff. So I like that.
Yeah, and then yeah, like you said, once his legs are broken, they're broken in a pretty funny way too. Obviously they're like completely reversed. And Rick is being pretty calm about it, but yeah, Morty is like on the ground, fucking in horrible pain, calling Rick a monster, and he sucks. And I do like that Rick. Okay, it's like okay, fine, I'll go get you like help. He leaves in the portal, and we just see Morty on the ground, fucking panting and again in horrible pain. Rick comes back. Oh yeah, I think we should, I don't know if you said it. The portal gun ends up being a big thing throughout the show. It's like Rick's main thing.
Yeah.
That he has a gun. He just shoots a portal. Green portal goes in. He can kind of just go wherever he wants.
Yeah, that's cool. And you go to different dimensions and things like
that.
I
think it's important to mention. Yeah, this is a different dimension, not like in a different planet. Like it is a different universe.
Yes. I do like the portal gun too. It's something new we haven't really seen before, because typically, when someone jumps from dimension to, like, dimension, like in Phineas and Ferb, when they do across the second dimension, they have to build, like, a whole device just to do it type of thing. I remember in that movie, like, there's ways to do it, like, you can just go directly, or you have to, like, I remember in the movie, like, they do a montage where they have to, like, go, like, clockwise type of thing. But here they kind of, change the format where, it's pretty much, they didn't say how it works, though, like, because obviously you shoot it, but you just think about where you want to go, and then that's, like, I don't...
That is something I always wondered, how Rick kind of just, like, has it go wherever he wants. He never seems to, like, punch it in or anything.
Yeah. Well... Yeah, because they never mentioned, like, he needs coordinates or anything like that, so... Because, later on, when they're in, like, the customs place, he has to, like, put in the coordinates, so I'm going to guess that's the same thing here, where he has to put in the coordinates in the portal gun.
But we never see him do that. He kind of just always, like, pulls it out of his pocket, shoots it, and goes in.
Yeah, so...
But it would make... I know you said they always, like, build a big device for it. Rick is a, old guy, he's obviously been doing this for a long time, decades. So I think it makes sense that he would kind of like streamlined it, like he kind of just like has it in his pocket.
Yeah. And I like the portal gun. I like the way like it's animated and everything like that.
And I like that this kind of seems to be like Rick's main thing. I think future seasons make Rick like way overpowered.
Yes.
But he has like fucking like a million things on him. I like that for this episode and like most of season 1, he's kind of just like a guy with the portal gun, and that's like his main thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But Rick is, Morty's on the ground in horrible pain for like 30 seconds. But we find out Rick was gone for like a really long time on his end.
Yeah. I like it.
Which kind of cool. Implies like he's not just traveling universes, or like when he's traveling a universe, time won't exactly match up 1-to-1.
Mm-hmm. What I liked about this too is like to show that, like it said, like they stayed cut on Morty for like a good couple seconds type of thing, so it shows like Rick was gone for quite a bit of time.
Yeah, and like that's being a whole plot for another episode is like when Morty's using the portal gun, it's over the course of like a dinner, but like on the other universe, like literally generations will go by.
Yeah.
So I do like they're kind of setting that up early that like it's not exactly like a 1-to-1.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Morty Rick comes back and he gives Morty this like juice that like instantly heals his bones, and Morty even says like, oh wow, this feels like better than ever. And I like how Morty's like, he's like, oh wow, thank you so much, Rick. And Rick's like, yeah, just don't worry about it, man. Like he's actually being like nice to Morty.
Yeah.
Because again, I feel like some episodes are like have Rick being like really fucking mean spirited.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, Morty turns on the gravity boots this time for real. Climbs up the tree and starts like taking him out. And while he's doing this, Rick is kind of pretty casually explaining, like, oh, yeah, I went to this place that was, like, super futuristic. Like, their medicine was, like, amazing. That stuff I got that healed all your broken bones. I got that shit over the counter, like buying Tylenol.
Yeah, it was insane.
And that, like, everyone there is, like, young forever. Like, I was the only old person. But because he was the only old person, he was, like, a celebrity, basically. And, like, everyone wanted to get with him.
Yep.
And he was like, so because I was there for so long, my portal juice is like run out. I don't know how that works. I thought he always had to use the portal juice to have it run out.
Right.
But the way he's like describing it here is just like he was in one place for so long that it ran out.
Yeah, I guess that's more future episodes problems, because they clearly had to like bullshit their way so that way they could do the customs like plot type of thing. But
yeah. Because again, as far as I said, this episode wouldn't have even really happened. It just they would have gone to the nuts and they would have went back. That's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
But he basically explains like, all right, Morty, you're gonna have to shove these nuts up your ass in order to get us through space customs. And he explains that like Morty's young and he's never had to shove anything up his ass yet. So he's it'll fit just fine. But Rick has done this too many times, so it'll just like fall out of him. Which is a really gross joke, but I think it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And because I think you said like, oh, that's the reason he picked Morty is because Morty could shove it up his ass. But remember, this was never part of the plan in the first place.
That's true.
So this kind of ended up being convenient.
And then they go through customs. And
I think this is still me.
No, that was just the plan. I was actually talking about them going through customs.
Oh, okay. Yeah, whatever. This kind of got screwed up because you ended up talking about the stuff at school. So
yeah,
that's the notes.
You couldn't be here for that. So Rick and Morty. We see Morty went to the bathroom, like shoved the nuts up his ass. Doesn't sound great out of context.
These things are massive. They're like as big as his forearm.
Yeah. I like too that they show customs, because obviously it was a way for them to go on a big adventure. Because it's only the first episode, you don't want to do anything like too big. So this was kind of a way to do something big without really being out in like a big dimension or anything like that. And you got to kind of see like how different people look at every dimension, because you see like these monster figures are like talking in like a different language and everything like that.
I do like we see a lot of different like creatures here, but like the main ones are like these bug guys, and I do like this ends up being like these guys aren't just like one-off aliens. Like these guys end up being like the main species.
For like the first early few seasons, yeah. So that's
of like the government. Yeah.
And so
kind of weird because these guys are all naked, and then, like when they show up later, they like wear clothes.
Yeah, so I guess that was a continuity.
And maybe this airport is just like a nudist airport.
Could be, yeah. But
I keep calling it an airport, but it's not an airport, but it's an airport.
Yeah. So Rick and Morty are getting ready to go through customs, and Yeah, they treat this like normal, by the way, because I do like because it is, but like it's just kind of weird for us because like that's what makes it so funny in like the show. This is like a normal thing, like as if we were gonna go on like an airplane or anything like that, but it's like doing like dimension like travel and all that type of stuff.
That's why I keep calling it an airport, because that's the way they're treating it. Yeah.
So like one of the guys
like this is very casual for everyone. Yeah.
One of the guys like says tells Morty to step aside because they're doing like a random check, and they're gonna like have him like go through like a device that can like check his rectum, which is what a coincidence that was. That was kind of way too.
Yeah, I was gonna say because he points out Morty. He's like, all right, Morty specifically has to like go. I feel like this is like racism. Like how at like airports they'll like pick out like specific kinds of people to do extra screening. This guy feels the same way. This guy was like, I'm a bunch of damn dirty humans, huh? All right, I'm going to make them do some extra screening.
But it was only Morty, though. Like, Rick could have gone through fine, but it was only Morty for some reason that had to go. So,
it is also kind of funny that, because I remember Jerry and Rick end up going on like a similar thing, and they end up letting Rick go on, but they just like make him stupid for the remainder of the flight.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that ended up being a new thing, or like they would have just done that to Morty here. They would just made him stupid and like taken the nuts out of his ass.
Right. But yeah, so what I do like to think though too, because he was with Rick, that maybe like Rick has a reputation, so like it's not like I wouldn't say it's a completely coincidence, but it was kind of a coincidence that only Morty had to go through the machine, but not Rick.
Yeah. We end up finding later on that like Rick is like the #1 enemy of the government. So, like, it is kind of weird that he's not, like, on a watch list.
Yeah. But when Rick realizes they're going to get busted, he has, like, him and Morty, like, book it. And I like this chase scene here. Several of these bug guys, like, chase after, like, Rick and Morty. And, you got to see a bunch of chaos happen. One of them was, one of these guys was, like, I guess smoking drugs. But, like, Morty gets contact high from it and he starts coughing and it like forms like another alien of like himself in like an alien form, but then like it dies. And I just like that
it's not that it dies. It starts as an infant and then it goes through an entire life in like 5 seconds. Like it grows to like an adult, then old man, then it like fucking falls over and dies of old age.
And then, like, I like that Morty's freaked out by this. And I think we were all meant to be, too. And Rick is just like, don't think about it. Like, wait, how do you not think about that? Like,
yeah, I know, right? Yeah, clearly showing Rick's been through all this shit. And he's like, all right, look, just don't worry about it now. We'll deal with it later.
And then,
I do like they kind of get cornered at one point, and then Morty turns on the gravity boots, and Rick even gives them props. Like, good job, good thinking, Morty. That, the student becomes a teacher.
Yeah. And, it looks like they've escaped, but we find out that these alien bug guys have wings. And so they could still chase after them, but because they have the gravity boots on, they can just like run on like pipes and stuff. And they jump off from like a really high surface, and we just see like this alien like talking to somebody, and he gets like smashed like a blob type of thing. Like
yeah.
I think
that was the alarm, by the way. So we'll just try to like wrap it up in the next like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think we'll be good in like 10 minutes. And then they get to a point where they get to like a portal where Rick can just type in the coordinates, and obviously the aliens are shooting at him, and they end up pulling out a gun, and Morty's obviously nervous about shooting at him, and Rick's just like, don't worry about it, Morty, they're just robots. And then Rick shoots at one of them, and like his leg comes off.
You mean Morty?
Yeah, Morty shoots at one of them. And
we've both been doing that. We've both been like fucking up the names.
Yeah. And his leg comes off, and he's, like, bleeding out. And Morty's just like, oh, Rick, they're not robots. But apparently Rick was just saying they're, like, robots, like, in a different sense, like, different definition. Like, they're, like...
Right, like they're government workers, and, like, he doesn't, like, respect them. Like, he just views them as drones. Like, because obviously he was, like, shitting on, like school earlier. So kind of similar thing where he doesn't really respect, like, institutions.
So, but, like, you can tell, but the way Morty took it was like they were actually like robots, so that's why he feels so good.
Oh yeah, like literal, and then he like shoots the guy's leg off, and he's like bleeding, and the other guy's like cradling him, like, oh my god, Glenn's been hit, he's bleeding out. Someone call his wife and kids.
Yeah,
like, and then Morty surprisingly keeps shooting, like he's cool with it, like he keeps shooting him and killing him.
Yeah, And then
And it would have been nice if we actually like saw him continue to be like fucked up by it. He's like, I don't want to shoot.
yeah, and then eventually Rick punches the coordinates, and they go through the portal. And then before I talk about what happens next, I guess we'll just like
Go over the B plot.
yeah.
So I guess I'll talk about it because you've been talking a lot. Jerry ends up visiting Beth at her job.
What do you think of everything at Customs? Because you didn't get to talk too much about.
I liked it. I liked it. Just a lot of weird shit. Kind of establishing like this is the world of Rick and Morty. It's like very sci-fi. A lot of weird aliens around.
Yeah.
But again, like you said, I like how it's treated very normally. Like this, just like they're going through customs, like you would on Earth.
I do like here at least.
There's kind of like a method to the madness kind of thing.
I do like here at least too that like we find out these aliens are evil later on, but I actually like here that not really being evil, they're just like doing the jobs for the most part type of thing. So like
yeah, like if anything, Rick and Morty are the villains here.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the B plot is back on Earth. While all this is happening, Jerry visits Beth at her job, and she's performing heart surgery, like on a horse. And there's a joke throughout this that whenever they're like talking and Beth is like distracted, the horse keeps like going under, like the heart stops, and she has to like keep restarting the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked Jerry at the dinner, but man, I fucking hated him here.
Yeah,
or like well, like he's he makes a valid point about Rick putting him in a retirement home and he's a bad influence on Morty, but he's just like a shitty husband. Or like she keeps like saying like I'm a doctor, and he's like, yeah, a horse doctor. Well, like you're not like a real doctor. And I'm like, dude, being a horse doctor sounds really fucking hard.
Yeah, like I don't think that's easy. It's probably
like
hard
you're still performing surgery.
Yeah, so yeah. Probably harder than being like a regular doctor because you're doing a species that isn't yours.
Yeah, like completely different, like anatomy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that I'm pretty sure that ends up being a running joke throughout the show that like no one really treats her seriously, and I'm like, fuck you guys, that's actually like really fucking difficult. Like, yeah, she's a fucking doctor. Fuck you.
Yeah, I don't know why they kept it. I don't know why they kept doing this joke too, because it'd be like it'd be one thing if they did like vets, like if she was like a vet. And she called
yeah, that's what I mean. Like if she said she was a doctor, but she just like did like she was like just did like checkups and shit, like that I would get. She's not like actually like performing anything crazy.
But yeah, she's
no, she's like actually performing fucking surgery
on horses of all things too.
On horses, yeah. And again, completely different anatomy from humans who can't even go like basic logic. That shit's actually really fucking complicated.
Yeah.
So no, everyone's an asshole when they say that. Everyone's gaslighting Beth into thinking it's not a big deal.
Right.
But and then obviously Jerry isn't taking it seriously because he's like trying to have like this conversation with Beth, and she's like, I'm kind of in the middle of something. And he's like, okay, I'll leave. And he drops a pamphlet, and he's like, oh look, what is this? A retirement home? Maybe we should put your dad in this.
Yeah.
And then like after the surgery, they're in Beth's office, and they're continuing to discuss it. And Jerry, to be fair, makes some good points. That Rick is a really bad influence on Morty, and like, hey, listen, like we should put him in a home, like it'd be better for him. He's not saying it'd be better for Rick, because he's like obviously saying that like it'll be pretty shitty for Rick, but it'll be better for everyone else.
And I do like that, but they both make good points. Like when Beth responds, and say what she says, she's not just doing it in defense of like her father.
Yeah, she does say like, listen, Morty for the first time in his life has like a friend. Like Rick is a good influence on, Morty. And Jerry, to be fair, he's like, maybe you're right. I didn't really look at it like that.
And also she mentions too, like, that, Morty wasn't doing great in school like before. So like, so I do like that type of thing.
Yeah, it's like, it's not fully Rick's fault. Excuse me. So I've been like so coffee like today. And I do like the joke where like this like other doctor is like talking to Beth like in the hallway. He's like, oh man, we really did a good thing. Like clearly it seems like he's kind of like flirting with Beth. Yeah. And then Jerry just kind of like shuts the door, and he's like, so by the way, if you ever like cheat on me with that guy, I will blow my brains out in front of you.
Mm-hmm. And that ends up being like actually that was the B plot for the episode 6 actually too, which is kind of cool.
Was it? I don't remember that.
Yeah, so it did come back. So
It's been a while. But yeah, while they're having this nice conversation, they end up getting a call from the principal. His name was Principal Vagina, which, it's funny.
He said no relation too. What did that mean? Like,
yeah, I know, right? Yeah. And just saying that, okay, so basically Morty has not been attending school because they end up meeting the principal at the school for like a teacher meeting, and that essentially Morty has only gone to school like 7 hours over the last 2 months, and like they're like pissed at the guy, like, why haven't you been like emailing us or like calling us about this? And he's clearly an idiot because just says like, oh, I've been calling his grandfather, which, conveniently, or like, oh, strangely, Rick is the guy who keeps like getting Morty out of school.
So I do, but
so he keeps calling Rick about it, but like Rick is the one who keeps getting him out of school.
Yeah, but I do like when he says that though. He like pieces 2 and 2 together, type of thing. So
he's like, oh yeah, I'm getting it now.
Yeah.
And while they're walking in the hallway, they go by like the little memorial for the guy, the bully who Rick murdered. Mm-hmm. And Summer and a bunch of other students are there like crying over him. It was just funny that like Summer is kind of responding like a normal person, like she's like horrified this guy like fell to pieces right in front of her.
Yeah.
But end up later on, we find out like Summer is kind of a lot more like Rick than Morty is, like very cold-hearted when she wants to be.
Yeah, so it's I guess, I'll kind of give it a pass because I don't think they really knew what to do with Summer yet in like season 1. So
yeah. I mean, I think that ends up happening for everyone. Everyone starts off pretty normal and they end up getting a lot more like.
Well, don't forget that. I mean, I know we say this now. It's like, well, they didn't know what they wanted to do with these. They're not the same people when we go.
Yeah, true. Yeah, they aren't the same people. Yeah.
If you didn't know, if you watch this video and haven't seen any other episode of Rick and Morty, you're totally not gonna know what we're talking about there.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I like how the principal points out like, oh yeah, we just had a little thing happen here with another student who like died, and then he like says like, and by the way, no one says it was a Latino student who like killed him. And he's like, oh yeah, just people are probably gonna say that, so I figured I nip it in the bud. Yeah. But like obviously the joke is that like he's like kind of throwing it out there. Like no one was saying that, but he's the one like kind of throwing that idea out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And then like you said, Rick and Morty end up portaling back to the cafeteria. And Jessica is like, oh hey Morty, cool job, like teleport. I like again, no, everyone else is like treating it like normal too, which is funny.
Yeah.
Because like later on in the show, like Earth gets invaded like a million times, so people would be used to it. But as far as we know, nothing crazy has like happened yet.
Right.
So it is kind of funny. It's like in Ben 10 where everyone's treating the shit like normal, and it's like weird because like no one should be treating it like normal at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get that.
Like in Ben 10, once we get to like Alien Force and Ultimate Alien, where the Earth has been invaded like a million times, it's like, yeah, I get it. But like it is weird here because like none of the crazy shit has like happened yet.
Yeah, exactly.
But fuck you, Rick, because earlier on he was like trying to set up Rick with Morty with Jessica when he was drunk. But here Jessica's like interested in Morty, and Rick just like pulls him away. He's like, okay, yeah, we can't worry about that right now.
I did like they broke the cliches and had like Morty's crush like notice him in the first episode just because like it kind of gets it's nice to build to it, but sometimes it's nice to just kind of get it out of the way because it's not really what Rick and Morty is about.
They end up doing a joke with that later, where like Jessica says like, "Oh hey, Morty, I don't really, your name's Morty, right? I know we've like interacted several times, but like I'm still not sure who you are." Yeah. Like they end up doing that joke, where like she still doesn't notice Morty, even though they have like been like multiple episodes together.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. That's the first episode here because this isn't really what Rick and Morty is about, so like it's okay to kind of just give it away here, type of thing. And again, like we talked about later, this isn't going to be the same. But technically, this Jessica's only in it for the first like 6 episodes, so it's fine. So
yeah, I know, right? Yeah, that is funny.
That is funny. Like you could just do. Honestly, if you think about it, they could have just like done like a big finale. I know they kind of did one, but like they could have given away everything in the first like 5 episodes, and then like started over essentially. It
wouldn't have mattered for these people, yeah. But yeah, Rick wants to get Morty back home to get the nuts out of his ass. Because we end up finding out later they dissolved inside of him, so they end up like not being able to use them. Before they can leave, they get stopped by the principal and Beth and Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
And they're pretty pissed off. And I like how Rick immediately tries to like turn on Morty. Like, Morty, why aren't you in class? Shame on you. And then he pretty much puts together like, okay, no one's buying that.
I liked everyone in the background was like pissed too. By the way, you saw like all the background characters had like mad
like
faces.
Yeah, pissed like oh Rick, how dare you not get Morty to his class? Yeah,
it's so weird.
And then they end up cutting back to the house. And do you want to talk about this part?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I liked everything with Beth and Jerry.
Yeah, pretty small subplot, but I like that they're, like you said, they're both kind of being reasonable. Like, they're not just completely ignoring each other. Like, when Beth makes a point, like, about, like, you know, Morty having a friend, Jerry's like, oh, you know, yeah, you're kind of right.
Yeah.
But then, you know, once, even though she was taking Rick's side, once she finds out that, like, Morty has missed so much school because of Rick, she does kind of, like, get pissed at Rick as well.
I like to, like, Jerry was happy to be right, but then, like, he realized, like, why am I happy about this type of thing?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know. And again, I do think it's funny to, you know, here Jerry seems like a normal father, but we're going to find out, like, later on, like, you know, more about his backstory and the kind that's, like, not as...
Not really his backstory, just that he's kind of a bitch.
Yeah, so...
But, like, here he's pretty normal.
Well, is it this Jerry? Well, I guess all Jerrys are that way, right? Because, you know...
that's a plot point that like all Jerrys are kind of bitches.
Yeah. So then, yeah. So at the garage, clearly some time has passed. So you know, Jerry and Beth.
Well, it's funny you say that because we end up finding out that this Jerry in particular ends up becoming like a badass.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then, but yeah, Jerry and Beth, you know, are getting ready to move Rick to a retirement home, and they're gonna move all this stuff. They're upset with them, that you know, Rick has been like pretty much sabotaging Morty when it comes to school and everything like that. And I like too how Rick still has like his social commentaries and everything like that, and his worldviews on like retirement homes. I like that he still throws that in there, even though he's clearly has every right to not. He shouldn't even be talking right now with how much he like screwed up in this episode. And eventually, you know, Rick tells says to them like, you know, Morty's like special, and you know he's trying to teach them real world stuff. School's not how you learn things. And here, you know, Jerry kind of mentions to like, you know, Rick that like Morty has to work like twice as hard because like he's got like a disability and all that type of stuff, and like Rick's just kind of making it worse by making him miss so much school. And I like this too because Morty like didn't even like know about this, and I think the joke is they probably, because I don't think we never find out if Morty does have a disability, but I think that's the joke, is they think he does have a disability type of thing, but Morty probably doesn't even have one, because Morty didn't even know about it.
When Jerry says that and Morty's like, I do, and he's like, yeah, sorry son, you're like a lot slower than the other kids. And Morty's like, oh wow, that's kind of a lot to like dump on me all of a sudden.
Yeah. So then you know, Rick kind of like goes to prove Jerry won, and he has Morty say like the square root of pi, and you know Morty pretty much gets it like exactly, because it is exactly right, but doesn't the square root of pi like go on for like ever? So he says like the numbers.
Yeah, so he just names like the first like 10. And well, I do like you kind of get a hint that like this isn't normal, because like Morty, like his eyes like go way out.
Yeah. And
like he like stiffens up, and he's like, whoa, how do they do that? So clearly like this isn't like Morty actually knowing it.
Right.
Which you'll find out in a second.
And then he has him say something else, and then like Jerry and Beth are like really impressed that like Morty's learning all this stuff, and then they don't really know how it happened. And then you know, this is when Rick says, you know, like, see, this is proof like school's not like how you learn things. Like Morty can learn things but being on adventures with me. And then
I do like what he says. He's like, Morty's like me. Like he'll end up being a big science guy like me.
Yeah.
So I do kind of like that, where he's like, he's not he's just saying that like, you know, because one, I think it makes sense why Beth and Jerry would like approve of it if he's saying that like, oh, you know, Morty's gonna be like me and he's gonna make a bunch of shit ton of inventions, you know.
Do you think Rick was being genuine here, or no? Do you think he was bullshitted?
No.
I like to think so too. But it's always nice to have. It's always nice to have those conversations, like the elfin with. Light.
It's funny because I feel like we've had that a few times where I'm like, yeah, I think there is some truth to what he's saying, but here it's like, no.
Yeah, definitely not. So then Beth and Jerry this kind of convinces them to let Rick stay because they don't want to see Morty's progress and stuff go away. But they kind of meet in the middle.
But because this is the first episode, I feel like you could buy that Rick isn't bullshitting. But because of what he says to Jerry, and when Summer comes in upset about the kid dying, and Rick is like, "Oh, I don't know what that's about," then it's kind of clear he's bullshitting.
So then they let him stay. They let Rick stay, but he has to go to he has to keep going to school. And then Rick's like, okay, you drive a hard bargain, and then the summer thing happens, and he says he doesn't know what he's talking about, and Jerry and I almost said Jerry and Summer, that would have been good, but Jerry and Beth go off to have sex.
Well, let me say that because the show ends up having a lot of incest stuff later on,
and a big thing is
well, funny enough, it's the only people not doing incest would be Jerry.
Yeah, but funny to say. Even that about Jerry and Beth, because obviously we find out they have big marital issues later on type of thing, so it's kind of funny.
Well, you kind of get a hint of that here, where Jerry's like, "So you want to do something?" And Beth is kind of like, "You know what? Sure." She sounds very less enthusiastic than Jerry.
But again, it wasn't this. I say that, but it wasn't this Beth and Jerry that were having the marital issues technically.
True. Well, I think the consistency in every universe is they have issues.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. The issues that happen later on aren't technically this Beth and Jerry.
Again, so confusing when you don't know the context.
Yeah.
But then,
they leave, and Morty's actually pretty happy. He's like, "Oh my god, cool! I'm actually smart. I'm learning stuff on these adventures." And Rick has to break the bubble and be like, actually, no, I just said that to bullshit your parents. Those nuts that dissolved in your ass, which funny and high. But those make you temporarily super smart.
Mm-hmm.
But so you're actually stupid in reality. And also, once those wear off, in the next 5 seconds, you'll be all your motor skills will be gone for the next 3 days. And then Morty just collapses on the ground. He's like,
Poor Morty.
Yeah.
And then this causes Rick to go in a big monologue talking about all the adventures they're gonna go on. And mentions he pretty much had to sacrifice the siege just to get his parents off his back and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, and he's like, okay, we're gonna have to go back. We're gonna go on more adventures, And then he says, the kind of the classic thing that they'll begin every season of Rick and Morty with, of Rick just ranting for a minute straight, saying Rick and Morty, 100 years, Morty and Rick and Morty adventures always, 100 million times. He just says that a minute straight.
I like that they've come back to this joke. Every season type of thing. So
yeah,
and they've changed it too. It hasn't been the exact same joke every time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that was pretty much it for episode 1. This video ended up kind of being a little bit of a mess, but
yeah.
I like this episode overall. I give it a B-. Solid start. Like you said, it's kind of like Danny Phantom, where they kind of plop you in at a random episode.
Yeah. I'll give this a B- also. I like that you get kind of a sense of what the show is kind of mainly gonna be about for the most part.
Yeah.
And I like that you get a sense of the characters.
They didn't really, even though Summer, I like Summer, I'm glad they didn't really give her too much focus. The show's Rick and Morty. Yeah. Focus on Rick and Morty.
Which is what I think the anime didn't really do all that well. Was they didn't really do a Rick and Morty adventure. They kind of, they weren't even on screen
at
together.
Least when you start a show, when you start the show, be about the main characters.
Yeah. I think we've talked about this before. Where would you rank this in season premieres? I think we've done this before.
Oh god, I don't even know, because I don't think I've even seen the season premieres.
Oh, I'm talking about I have shows we've reviewed is what I meant to say.
Yeah, about the Danny Phantom tier, not as good as Ben and Avatar.
Yeah. Or
Death Note or Breaking Bad.
What about
again, it looks bad, just standard.
What about Yellow Jackets?
I think we said Yellow Jackets was in between Danny and the Avatar and Ben.
Okay.
So
now
I like Yellow Jackets a little bit more.
Well, technically that has 2 season premieres if you think actually technically, because
True. Yeah.
But I've been saying this season.
Yeah, we haven't reviewed season 2, episode 1, but I
Actually,
would still like to have
if you
more.
think about Death Note has 2 season premieres, by the way.
Yeah, because episode 1 and episode 2 are because we get introduced to L. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think we gave Danny Phantom like a C or something.
Yeah.
So better than that, but like not as good as the other ones that we've done.
Yeah, probably like the second worst, but still a B-. That's still like
Not bad.
Actually, no, this isn't the worst season premiere we've reviewed. Kiss This. Don't forget that's. The
yeah, we gave that like a fucking F triple minus. Yeah. But I liked it. I like sci-fi stuff, so I'm excited that we're doing Rick and Morty. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. This video ended up. I think the reason this video ended up being longer than we thought because we kind of fucked up the format, like in between it and everything like that.
Yeah, I was like, damn, our intro went super long. Our intro went like half hour.
Yeah, and then we ended up fucking up the format, so that kind of.
Yeah.
But whatever. We still got it done. I still like this video. But yeah, anything you want to plug or promote?
No.
As for my end, check out Western Fortune 44 for GM mode. And then obviously this channel, I know AJ and I said we were going to get a video recorded every day, but then we missed a day, so then we didn't, so then I didn't give a shit anymore, so that's what kind of happened. So we're actually going to try this time. Hopefully it happens. We have a lot of stuff planned, so just check it out. That's pretty much it, guys. Thank you guys for watching. We'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.